Today I'd like to review a few problems before you take your test. So we're going to go through a few sample problems. Make sure that you're all set up and ready for your test with dividers. You can't see anybody else's paper and you're spread out around the room. When you're ready and you're done with this video, you can raise your hand and start working on your test. So let's get started. The first problem I have in front of you is an order of operations problem. So I want you to keep in mind our little acronym that helps us to remember the order that we do problems. PEMDAS. So start with the P, and that means parentheses. So what we need to do on this problem is start inside these parentheses here. Remember, on order of operations problems, I'd like you to show all of your steps, and your work should look like a V. So let's get started on this. We're going to go through the work. So I'm going to recopy everything else that isn't parentheses, and now I'm going to take what's in parentheses, I'm going to simplify. Now inside these parentheses we have to do order of operations, so I have to do the exponent. So 2 squared is 4, and then I do 4 minus 4, and that gives me 0. The next thing I want to do is my exponents that weren't in the parentheses, so I'm going to take this 3 squared and make it 9. So I have 9 plus 5 minus 8 times 2. I don't need to write the plus 0 on the end. The next thing I do is multiplication. So be careful, some of you like to subtract in here, but we don't do that next. We have to do this multiplying next, right here. 8 times 2 is 16. So I'm going to recopy the rest of the work. So I have 9 plus 5 minus 16. Now I do adding and subtracting, and you have to go left to right. It'll make a difference if there's subtraction in there. So I'm going to go left to right on this part right here. 9 plus 5 is 14, and 14 minus 16 is a negative 2. Use your calculator if you're having any trouble with negatives. All right, let's try another problem. My next problem that I want to try is evaluating. Oops, sorry, I went too far here. Evaluating is where you're going to put a number in place of the variables, and then you're going to follow order of operations. Remember that when I asked you to do these problems in class, I wanted you to put the variables or the numbers in place of the variables in parentheses. So we're going to start in this problem. In place of A, I'm going to put in 2. I'm going to use parentheses. And then I have B minus C. So that is, in parentheses, a negative 1 minus, and then C is a negative 3. And then that's all over C minus 1, so I have negative 3 minus 1. The parentheses are really going to make a difference if there's any exponents. Now we apply order of operations, and some of you were actually like distributing when we were practicing this in class. You do not need to take the 2 and distribute it across what's in the parentheses here. Just when it's all numbers, just simplify this down here into one number. So negative 1 minus a negative 3, if you remember, 2 minuses right next to each other become 1 plus sign. So this becomes negative 1 plus 3. Let me just go ahead and recopy the rest. So I have negative 3 minus 1. So I'm going to simplify this. Negative 1 plus 3 is 2. So I have 2 times 2. Now I can simplify the bottom. Negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4. 2 times 2 is 4. So I have 4 over negative 4. And don't leave your answer like that. Actually divide that out. Your answer would be negative 1. The next type of problem you may see on your test is simplifying expressions. This one I put in because it is tricky. There's a negative sign in front of parentheses. So you can think of it 2 ways. I told you that when you see a negative sign in front of parentheses, you can just take what's in the parentheses and change the sign. So you could have negative 5x, and then the rest would become negative x, negative 4. I changed the signs of each thing in the parentheses. That's one way to think about it. Or you could think about it as you have a 1 here. So this is actually a negative 1. So you think of this plus a negative 1 that's going to be multiplied by each thing in the parentheses. Again, though, you're going to get a negative x and a negative 4. Now we're going to combine like terms. I combine my x's. I have a negative 5x and a negative 1x. That would be negative 6x. And then I'm going to take my negative 4 and just bring it down. I do not combine letters and numbers, so that is my answer. Let's look at one more problem. My next problem is similar, and here's where I'm afraid you're going to make your mistake. We're going to have to distribute this out right here. The rest of the stuff, we just bring it down and just recopy it. And so when I distribute this, I have to be careful. This is a -7. If you want to, put a little plus sign in front here and here. And I'm actually taking the -7 and multiplying it by each thing. Not 7, but -7. So -7 times x is a -7x plus, and then -7 times, now careful, this is a -5, so that would be +35. So where people tend to make mistakes on these problems is with the negative signs. If you make a mistake on your negative sign, your answer will be wrong. Now I combine like terms. 3x and a -7x. Again, put a plus sign in front of that subtraction sign if you need to. That would be -4x. And then a +35 and -6, or 35 minus 6, would be a +29. One last thing that I'd like to review with you is the expressions that we call turnaround phrases. If you're asked to give an expression, sorry, this thing keeps moving around on me. If you're asked to give an expression for 5 less than x, less than is a turnaround phrase, and that means you're going to have to change the order. It's not 5 minus x, it'll be x minus 5. Remember, less than and subtracted from are turnaround phrases. Also remember that we have parentheses phrases like times the sum of and times the difference of. All right, so now you're going to take your test. Please take your time, go slow. You don't want to make any careless mistakes. Go back and check things over when you're done if you have time. When you're all finished, follow the agenda for the day. Good luck.